everyone. My name is Chris Coons.
My name is Isabel Mate.
I'm Matthew Walkman.
Garrett Lopez.
And I'm Samir Matsu.
And we are presenting on Chapter 9, which is all about finding meaning in your life. Now, the chapter starts with a story about a guy in World War II in a concentration camp who wrote a book about meaning in life, which when you think about is incredibly hard to do because trying to find meaning when you're in a concentration camp, what do? You're just trying to survive. Now, who here has ever thought about what their meaning of their life is and what their purpose is? Yeah, well, I'm glad everyone raised their hand because everyone has thought about this at least once in their life. But the good news is if Viktor Frankl, the guy in the concentration camp, can find a meaning to his life, then so can everyone here. It's good. And we're at a new age right now where the baby boomers, they have lived more. They're basically getting old now. They're retiring, they're in their 50s, and they're hitting the end of their life. They're financially set, they have their kids moved out, they're really, what do they do now? What's their meaning? What's their purpose? And they're trying to figure it out. And it's bringing in a new age, which is the sixth essential aptitude of the conceptual age, which is finding meaning and purpose in your life. So yeah, they're living in the suburbs, wondering what the hell they're going to do the rest of their life. And it's a transitional period between trying to be financially stable and now they're just trying to find spirituality. And spirituality is what Isabel is going to talk about.
About 15 years ago, the Dalai Lama started inviting researchers and scientists into his home to allow them to study his lifestyle and the way he meditated and for their research and to advance scientifically. Because they wanted to get a picture of how he achieved this superhuman capacity of meditation. So in order to do this, not only did they study the Dalai Lama's lifestyle, they also went to the monastery and started taking MRIs of monks' brains while they were in meditation. So with this research, they actually designed a technology called God's Helmet, which is that thing up there that looks like the thing from X-Men. That's what Xavier used to use. And what it does is that it takes electromagnetic fields and it bathes the right side of your brain with it, and then it's called God's brain because the people who use it, they feel like they're in touch with God, they feel religious, and they feel like one with everything, and that's the effect that helmet has. And also part of the way they created this God's helmet was not only did they take MRIs of monks, but they took it of nuns and convents, and what they found out from the studies was that from the MRIs, they found out that the part of the brain that focuses on yourself is barely being used. So you feel more in touch with the whole, you feel more a sense of godliness, you feel like you're in connection with everybody else because you're not focusing on yourself. And actually, in hospitals, they've done research and they found out that people who pray and meditate actually have lower blood pressure, and 72% of Americans actually who are healing, they heal faster when they incorporate faith, religion, and spirituality. And they also say that they would welcome a conversation about faith with their physicians. So now physicians are becoming more experienced in that subject because it's kind of one of those things that you don't want to talk about with people because you don't know what their religion is, but people are actually welcome to that idea now. And studies have shown that combined with spirituality, you can't just blindly pray oh, I hope I get better. But if you combine that with medicine, people actually heal faster.
The part now I'll be discussing is taking happiness seriously. Now, I'm going to start with this quote. Happiness cannot be pursued, it must be ensued. So what this means is that you can't necessarily go out. I know Thomas Jefferson says pursuit of happiness, but it's something that you get from within, something that you get. So any of you guys consider your happiness on a daily basis? Ask yourself if you're happy or not. Anyone? No one?
Sometimes.
Sometimes? Well, it's not something that you can really decide. It's either you're happy or not. And now, most psychologists up until now haven't studied happiness. We focus mainly on diseases, disorders, and dysfunctions. But now we're moving into an age where we can focus on things that help us feel fulfilled and more satisfied with our life.
The shift in thinking happened when a man named Martin Seligman came into a position of leadership in the American Psychological Association. And he basically influenced the focus of psychology from ailments and disorders, as was said, to looking at it in a more positive light and focusing on aspects of the mind that deal with positivity and meaning and significance. And this kind of sparked a movement into an area where people hadn't really thought of before, and it caused people to consider what happiness was to them and like what was meaningful in their lives. And his research revealed that happiness is contingent upon a couple of different factors, one of which being biology. Everyone is wired for a certain threshold of happiness depending on their genes, so that's why some people are happy-go-lucky and kind of at ease with everything, while others are kind of sarcastic and more of downers. So, but the good news is that anyone can master happiness regardless of what their threshold is. It's just they have to do it in regards to their particular circumstances. What was interesting about his research is that he found that factors such as socioeconomic status, level of education, and the climate in which you live in had relatively little to do with the levels of happiness people experienced. And this ties back into the fact that because of the age of abundance and that everyone's needs are met, their basic needs of survival are basically accounted for. So that gives humans, it's pushing us into an age when simply living your life isn't enough anymore. We need to search for a deeper meaning. And so as more people become able to participate in this activity of searching for a meaning, significance of everyone's life is entering a much more visible field as we see in the world today.
One of the top-selling novels of the past decade is Remove My Cheese, a tale of two mice, one of which, both of them actually have been living in the same cage, same maze, for the past couple of months, and they've been having the cheese put to them in the same place every day. One day, the man who's in charge of the study decides to move the cheese. Now, the two mice are in a conflict. They're not sure if they want to either make the move to find another cheese or stay still and hope that the cheese comes to them. This is a little experiment that he tried to find to show, in life things happen and you have to deal with it or you move on. So, and today we live in an age of abundance. We're not so much in a maze anymore, but more of a labyrinth.
Now, most people will think of a maze and a labyrinth as the same thing, but they both have a very discerning characteristic about them. Now, a maze will be an analytical problem in which one will try and solve the one or find the one way through as quickly as they can in order to get to the other side. But a labyrinth is a spiraling maze or a spiraling path through which one will wander, not in order to get out of, but rather to get lost in. And recently, real-life labyrinths like this one have been integrated into medical research facilities so that they can see how patients react to walking in the labyrinths. Many of the patients were feeling a meditative effect due to the left side of the brain being distracted by the tedious walking, while the right side of the brain is allowed to roam free. Labyrinths can also be equated to life because in a labyrinth, one doesn't just go through. In life, nobody says, hey, I need to get to the end of this as soon as possible. They think of it more as something, life is something in which you thrive and experience and find meaning in. And while the effects of the labyrinth can be found through yoga and other meditative practices, I would advise you to try and think of your life more as a labyrinth instead of a maze.
Great.